Welcome to Parramatta Marist High School and the Growth Mindset video. The purpose of this video is to get you to think about how to change your own as well as your students' mindsets so that success in education can be achieved. There is a philosophical grounding behind the concepts, which I hope become clear as the video progresses. As you watch this video, it is highly recommended that you stop it at any stage and take notes on what you feel is important, as your head of department will email you within a week with a link to a Google form to ascertain your understandings of the concepts, as well as to help you devise strategies to achieve success. Also, there is an opportunity for you to find out more about growth mindsets and its related concepts and philosophical groundings by clicking the link in the description part beneath this video. You have been at Parramatta Marist High School for approximately 3 weeks now, so I won't give you the history of the school, as you've already been through this. But what I will mention, if you haven't already noticed, is that Parramatta Marist is quite a progressive school in terms of the 3 pedagogical approaches adopted, namely project-based and problem-based learning, as well as the flipped classroom. All 3 approaches will require a change in your mindset so that you can successfully deliver or facilitate them in your classroom. Think back to your own education. Which teachers motivated you? How did they do this? Were you praised for your effort or praised for being smart? Were you given regular and timely feedback on your work? Was this feedback constructive? How did you view failure? As a friend or foe? Did you bounce back after failing an assessment task or an exam? Did you think that those who did well were born smart, or did they put effort in? These are the ideas that we will explore in this video. The aim is for you to start to grow in your own mindset. I'll explain this concept shortly. The concept of the growth mindset was developed by Dr. Carol Dweck from Stanford University, and it focuses on this idea that the brain is malleable and that effort, as the quote indicates, is what turns ability into accomplishment. You can read more about the concept in her book, Mindset, The New Psychology, and I've given you a brief summary of it in the link in the description part beneath this video. Basically, Dr. Dweck advocates that we as humans have 2 ways of viewing intelligence. One is fixed, where intelligence is static, and the other is growth, where intelligence can be developed. In the fixed mindset, people hold the belief that traits are given to us, that is, we're born with it, and to make up for the traits that you don't have, you must avoid situations or learning opportunities that may expose your weaknesses, and do everything in your power to focus on your strengths. In other words, you are born with intelligence, and there's no need to put effort in because you're born smart. In the growth mindset, people hold the belief that effort can enhance one's basic qualities, which result in open-mindedness and a willingness to take action and to learn and grow. That initial talents, aptitudes, and interests can change and grow through application and experience. Risk-taking and confronting challenges are viewed as necessary in order to grow, and mistakes are acknowledged as part of the learning process. Dr. Dweck and her team of researchers have done multiple experiments with school-aged children in this area, and you can read more about these in the references supplied. The concept of a fixed mindset and growth mindset poses a challenge for us as teachers. How do we get students to see that a growth mindset will lead them to success in their education? It's important to note here that knowledge of how the mind works plays a huge role in changing mindset. Hence why you're viewing this video, to enhance your own knowledge so that you may have the power to be able to put it into practice in the near future. You can read more about the value of knowledge in Ron Lara's Reflections on Value-Ladness of Knowledge in the reference list. Let's have a look at what Dr. Dweck says about the topic of growth mindset.
Kids come like this, infinitely curious, always experimenting, always learning, and attacking the most difficult tasks of a lifetime with tremendous gusto. And yet, just a few years later, many of the same children look like this, or this, or this. We have discovered that children's mindsets can lay at the heart of this problem. The wrong mindset can make them afraid of challenges, afraid of effort, afraid of setbacks, The important thing is this: we have discovered where these mindsets come from, how they work, and how to change them. So that's what I want to share with you today. In my work, we find that some kids hold a fixed mindset. They think their basic talents and abilities are just these fixed traits. They have a certain amount of intelligence or talent, and that's that. As you'll see, this is the mindset that saps children's motivation and stunts their minds. But other students have a growth mindset. They believe their most basic talents and abilities can be developed through practice, learning, good mentorship from others. They don't think everyone's the same or anyone can be Einstein, but they understand that even Einstein wasn't the man he became before he put in years and years of dedicated labor.
A quick activity you may wish to do to find out where on the mindset continuum you lie is by taking Dr. Dweck's Test Your Mindset test. You can also get your students to do it as a brief in-class activity and perhaps discuss with them why they fall into either category. It's also important to note that it is not uncommon for us to be in both mindsets. For example, some teachers, executive and coordinators have a fixed mindset on achieving good HSC results. But when it comes to how to achieve these results, the growth mindset kicks in. There are three key components of the growth mindset concept that are pertinent to future success in education. These are praise and feedback, building resilience, and building a culture of growth and evaluation. I'm sure you've heard of these concepts in your university studies. What I'm hoping to do is put them into the context of the growth mindset. Let's start with praise and feedback. How many times a lesson do you say, "Well done, good job, nice work"? After a while, it becomes a little bit redundant. But ultimately, we subconsciously say these phrases as quick feedback in the hope of encouraging our students. The way we give praise and feedback will ultimately guide or lead a student in terms of their mindset. For example, "You must be smart" suggests a fixed view on intelligence, whereas "you must have put in a lot of effort into this" suggests a growth view of intelligence. We need to be careful with what is said and how it is said when we give feedback and praise to our students. The right words given at the right time will foster success. Students need to know that they are on track to succeeding in what it is that they are doing. This will help them build their self-confidence. As suggested by John Holt in his work on how children fail, students are afraid of failure. And for those students with a growth mindset, an acknowledgement of the amount of effort exerted to achieve a task is critical, as is regular feedback. So when should we give feedback? Well, why wait to the end of the task or the submission date? Feedback is crucial at regular intervals during the completion of a task if we want to foster a growth mindset. For example, one way you can do this is by encouraging your students to submit drafts of their work. That way, you can give them constructive feedback on where they need to improve. Praise their effort, not their intelligence, to avoid undermining their motivation and performance. I have a strong feeling you're thinking, but what about exams? How do I give regular and constructive feedback on those? Well, you still can praise their study and application efforts, but zone in on the areas for improvement. This will encourage a growth mindset. We should be praising the effort, which is growth, rather than the intelligence, which is fixed. This is what will foster success in education. Let's have a look at how this idea of praise and feedback can work.
My research shows that we produce confident learners when we praise students for the process they engage in, not when we tell them they're smart or talented.
Let me tell you about this really fascinating study that has been replicated several times. Carol Dweck,
the mindset lady.
Yes, the mindset lady, has been going into schools and giving kids a simple test. And all the kids do pretty well on it. But then she divides them into groups. And some kids, she gives them one line of praise. All the kids, she's going to give one line of praise. Some kids, she praises their intellect. She says,
"You're so smart.
You did great on this test. You must be really smart."
Mm-hmm.
Which is very similar to the praise that Georgia's
right, you're a good artist.
You're a good artist. And the other kids, she said, "You did really well on this. You must have tried really hard."
Right.
So what's really interesting about this is just how incredibly powerful that one line was. So then she went back to the kids and she said, all right, you can do the same simple test or you can do a harder one, which you might learn from.
And all the You're So Smart kids started sweating profusely and having panic attacks.
And they took the simpler test. The majority of the You're So Smart kids.
They kept drawing the flower.
Right,
so
they kept drawing the flower. But in one study, 90% of the effort-praised kids took the harder test,
right.
which is really a remarkable result.
Right, because it's not about the outcome for them.
Right, that's exactly right. So what we're saying here is not that you shouldn't praise your kids.
Right.
We're saying you need to praise them in a really specific way. So the effort-praised kids, they reported having more fun on these tests, even when they weren't doing as well.
Right.
They wanted to take problems home to practice.
But You're So Smart kids don't want to take it home and practice because they don't need to practice because they're so smart.
Right. Effort
and
means...
if they do have to practice, then that means maybe they're not so smart.
Right. Well, and another thing that I think is really compelling is that the effort-praised kids, they liked the harder problems better than the easier ones, which is so great because that's how you get better at something. You keep challenging yourself.
Right.
So this simple study shows how profoundly praise influenced not just how well kids did, because
but what it feels like.
Right, and what it feels like, and the fun that they were having. Who
Right.
loved learning versus whose intellectual confidence was a little bit shaken, who got a little nervous,
Right.
who started to not do as well on a simple test.
Right, because it's your whole attitude about effort. Either effort is a threatening thing because you shouldn't have to work so hard because you're so smart,
Right.
or effort is the experience.
Right.
Effort is the joy. The joy is learning how to do something for the first time, trying hard, being challenged.
Right. So praise is very powerful.
Okay, so let's see feedback in practice. Here is an example of a way that you can practically kill two birds with one stone. That is, seek feedback from students so that you can improve your teaching whilst getting students to think about their own efforts after completing a task. I got my Year 12 HSC Business Studies class to fill in a simple Google form after the results came out from their half-yearly exams. There are 26 boys in the class. Hard to include all the responses in this video, so I chose one at random. You can view the questions and responses for yourself, but I want you to take note of the questions asked near the red arrow. They center around peer and teacher feedback and their role in achieving their results. And I asked them for suggestions to improve the course, to aid in achieving results. By doing this, I was able to take on board some feasible suggestions and I was able to get the class to reflect on their own effort. I smell a growth mindset developing. Just remember, your students know what's best to help them learn and grow. Don't try and figure it out on your own. Just ask. Failure. Now, one key aspect in trying to foster a growth mindset is helping students understand the concept of failure. This F word is an adult concept, hence why it is indicated by John Holt earlier. Students are afraid of failure. Why? Because they don't want to disappoint the adults in their lives, albeit their parents, their caregivers, their teachers, so on. Unfortunately, the way education is run in Australia, like in many other countries, we are inevitably fostering the idea of failure with all of this testing that we do. For example, the HSC. Students and society alike put so much emphasis on these exams in order to succeed in life. And when the student doesn't achieve the result they wanted, they feel like a failure and have no idea what to do. As indicated by John Fischetti in his article, The Rubber Duckies Are Here, 5 Trends Affecting Public Education Around the World, we are creating testing centres rather than learning centres. And if we are to foster success in education, we need to be able to work within these confines of testing centres and educate and role model what failure is and how to deal with it. But first, we need to change the definition. Anicia Ramirez, in her blog, Making Friends with Failure, suggests that we need to change the meaning of the F word, or rebrand it, and call it data rather than failure. If we rebrand the concept of failure, we are showing that each time we fail at something, we are collecting valuable data so that we can analyze it and make necessary changes for improvement with our next attempt. This is what will foster a growth mindset in education, encouraging students to see failure as a friend, not as a foe, in their development, whilst giving them more opportunities to encounter and experience failure, will inevitably lead to a higher chance of acceptance and acknowledgement that failure is necessary to achieve success. This is part of a growth mindset. This also leads to the idea of building resilience. Before we can build resilience, we need to know what a good learner looks like. According to Neil Postman and Charles Weingarter, a good learner has confidence in their ability to learn. This is key in developing both resilience and growth mindset. A good learner will bounce back after a challenge or a setback. This is what growth mindset is about. A student with a fixed mindset won't reattempt the challenge again and will deem themselves a failure. Let's get a better understanding of what it means to be resilient. So how can we build resilience both personally and within our students so that we are fostering a growth mindset? Dr. Dweck and David Yeager, in their work on resilience, suggest a few ideas. 1. Adequate and timely praise. Remember, praise the effort, not the intelligence. 2. Teach students the skills they need, not just to complete the task, but to be resilient, such as confidence, critical thinking, and so on. 3. Role model what being resilient is all about. Use anecdotes. Kids love these. Dr. Dweck and David Yeager have indicated that a growth mindset will lead to a more resilient student and ultimately will have a positive impact on academic behaviour. You can read more about this in the reference list later on. It's one thing for us as individual teachers to talk about fostering a growth mindset to achieve success in education, but imagine how powerful it could be if all stakeholders are on the same page, speaking the growth mindset language. The best way for this to happen is for a change in school culture to one that has growth at the centre of its vision and mission. However, before the culture can be changed, we need to look at the teacher education itself. As indicated by John Fischetti in his work on the importance of teacher education, teachers need to be able to collaborate with all stakeholders in clarifying why we have schools and why quality teacher education programs are essential for student success. I'm almost certain that this growth mindset stuff wasn't looked at in your teacher training. Perhaps the education of educators needs to be improved so that we can improve the education of our students from a whole school perspective. To foster a growth mindset in schools, Catherine Hall suggests 4 ingredients. 1. Observation. Teachers should be able to view their colleagues in action and learn effective strategies from each other. 2. Dialogue. Professional dialogue, both formal and informal, between teachers and between teachers and supervisors and executive, need to be regular and placed within high regard across the whole school. We need to assess students on their communication and interpersonal skills, so why not role model it? 3. Feedback. Feedback from parents, students, teachers, coordinators, principal should be regularly sought. And 4. Investment, in terms of time and commitment to the process. These 4 ingredients, if adequately combined, will be the recipe for a whole school approach to growth and success. Now, yes, this mindset stuff is all warm and fuzzy, but there are some implications of the research that need to be acknowledged in order for you to make a better judgment on how well you will adopt the concept. Firstly, it requires changing the status quo. Most teachers and students will argue, why change now? I've survived this long. Secondly, cost of retraining staff and professional development in terms of time and money. You're kidding yourself if you think completing your undergraduate degree in education is enough to get you by. Without professional development, you won't grow. No growth leads to a fixed view on your own intelligence. Thirdly, you cannot expect results instantaneously. It takes time for the fruits of your work to blossom. Patience is required. Fourthly, there is a chance that developing a growth mindset may come across, as Ivan Illich puts it, as deschooling school. In other words, if we were to correctly instill a growth mindset in our students, they will begin to realize that learning doesn't necessarily have to happen at school, and will begin to question the purpose of schooling. Are we equipped for this yet? I'll let you ponder that thought. So, where to from here? Well, if we are to see success in fostering a growth mindset, we as both individual teachers, school as a whole, and society in general need to integrate growth mindset education in teacher training and education programs at university level. We need to integrate growth mindset activities in school curriculum, which can be done at school level. We need to reconstruct the definition of failure and make sure that this new definition is common language. And we all need to speak the growth mindset language, especially with terms such as praise, effort, feedback, resilience. This needs to be done at a whole school level and eventually used in all schools. A good starting phrase in this new language can be changing the phrase I can't to I can. So to sum up, students and staff will definitely be better off with a growth mindset. If it is fostered and developed early, success is imminent in all areas of life. So let's just recap the key concepts here. I hope you've taken some notes down and are prepared to fill in the Google form that your head of department will send through to you. He or she will have a conversation with you about what you've seen or heard in this video after you fill in your form. Doesn't that sound like a school that is focused on growth? Feedback in action right there. Remember, for further information on the concepts in the video or for references on the philosophical groundings considered, please click the link in the description part under this video. And in the words of our school song, Fortio Ito, go forth with strength.